Hi, my name is Joseph Wagner. I was during 38 years in the Luxembourg Army, and one part of this occupation found back in the Korean War. I engaged in 1950, and I was sent to Korea with the Luxembourg detachment. All the people, they were volunteers. They had all volunteers. And we were attached to a Belgian battalion. We couldn't afford to have a big force, to have all the logistical facilities a unit can have, but we were all the time with the Belgians, attached to a Belgian company. And so we were, first of all, sent to a Belgian training camp. We did all the training which was useful for a fighter, for a soldier to be engaged in a war. And after that, we were sent to Korea on a Belgian boat, was called the Camina. We were on the Belgian boat, the Camina, but was not very comfortable. We had a very hard time during 6 weeks being from one sea to the other, and we arrived. We started on the 13th of December, and we arrived in Korea on the 1st of January. It was a long way, yeah. So then we were received in a reception center. We went on training again, what we found out by contact foreign units who had already fought in the Korean War, because we came in, then the Chinese were already in the war. They started in November, and we arrived on the 31st January. And what I feel, we never saw a North Korean soldier. We were all the time engaged with Chinese, because during the landing in Incheon, all the Korean units, they were cut off from their bases, and they had no contact from their bases anymore. And well, our first mission was to fight them. And we had, our first mission was to control the communications of South Korea. And we were stationed in Wake 1. Wake 1, that was our first mission, and we were all the time patrolling the region to be sure that those people would not go making trouble in this area. And after that, we joined the 3rd American Division, and we were taken in offensive action that was south of Seoul. As I said, we had to, first crossing was the Han River, and then we went up with American units, with the 3rd Division, up to the 38th parallel. And from there we changed we changed our attachment. Then we were attached, the Belgian battalion was attached to the 29th British Brigade, commanded by General Brody. General Brody, he was a jungle fighter, and when they sent him to Korea, there were only mountains and stones, no jungle at all. And well, we were attached to this unit, to the 29th Brigade, and then came the Battle of the Imjin River on the 23rd or the 23rd of what was it? April, 23rd April. And I was sent out on a patrol from the 12th to the 13th of April. And the Chinese, they were nowhere. Nobody knew where they were, because we had so many patrols during the night. Every unit had to send out patrols. And when I was sent out, I had, my mission was to see if a certain position was occupied. And when I came to this position, the position was occupied. We had a firefight with the Chinese occupation, and then we pulled out. We had one wounded, not by a bullet, but he was he fell down on a certain position. He hit barbed wire or some kind of defense object. So we came back to our base, and I was called to the brigade operation officer, to the G3 of the brigade. And then I told my story that we were having contact with this position where we were sent. And well, that was very valuable information, because 10 days after that, the war started. They started. Yeah? The Luxembourg detachment was north of the Imjin River. Was the other units. The Luxembourg company, the Belgian battalion, was north of the Imjin River, and all the other units from the brigade, the Gloucesters, the Royals, the Rifles, the Numberland, they were south of the Imjin River. And then when they attacked, well, we had to, first of all, to hold the position during 23 hours before we could move back. Yeah? And we were already surrounded by the Chinese, and we were liberated. The help by airstrike and by tank patrols, they cut the wave from the Chinese, and so we had the chance to pull out. Yeah? And then we went back, and during our retreat we had from time to time what they call retreating operations. You had to occupy a position, you had to pull out, you had to occupy another position to make the aggressor that they came from time to time on a resistance. Yeah? And then we came back to south of Seoul. I don't know the town anymore. And then we were on reserve of the brigade, because the brigade was not operative anymore, because they had already lost so many. They had lost one battalion. The Gloucester battalion was wiped out on their position on the Imjin, and so the brigade was what we call in reserve. Yeah? And after that, we were patrolling all the time the Imjin River, and that is where we had two wounded on a night patrol. And we because the Chinese had all the time infiltrators across the Imjin River, and they were patrolling the whole region every night. Huh? So we had two wounded, and they were evacuated to Japan. And when they had been, the treatment was up, they came back to our position. They came back to our position again. And well, from there we came also on a very comfortable situation, because we were also reserve of the brigade. And from there we stayed on the position, making patrols on the level of the battalion. The battalion, what they called a sweep, a coup de balai, a sweep, to find out where the Chinese were, because Chinese, after our offensive action, they had been thrown out. And then of the 1st of July, we had a very big operation, the Luxembourgers with a Belgian battalion, a Belgian company, and that was, we had to occupy a bridgehead across the Imjin River, a bridgehead. We had to make our position, and when we moved up, we crossed by boat. The Imjin River was very swollen, it was very high, and we crossed by a boat, and the British engineer troops, they took us along. Yeah? And when we came on the other side, there were some people left on the village. They said, well, there are 800 men who have just left the position we occupied, where we should occupy our bridgehead. And after that, after we were occupied, we were attacked by enemy fire, by Chinese fire. They were occupied about 800 to 1,000 meters in front of us. And we were taken in by fire. They attacked us by fire. And as I was on the side, I had all the time the possibility, the facility to call for artillery fire. And I knew exactly where they were, and I called artillery fire on their positions. But they were very clever soldiers. They were very, very successful and very skillful. Yeah? And then a Belgian company was moved up to find out where these Chinese were located. And when they came up to the position, they were attacked by the Chinese, and they had to pull out. And we were on a favorable position to help them by protective fire. And all our men, the whole platoon started to give supporting fire to the Belgian company. Yeah? And the company commander, he used to say all the time, if I would not have had the Luxembourg platoon on the 1st of July, my company was wiped out. And that was a very good compliment to me and to my people. So we had to pull out again. We were the last one section up after the other. And I was with the last section, and I was in the last boat being taken over in the Imjin River on the other side. And then the whole battalion and some supporting elements of the brigade, they all were shooting to protect our reply. So when we were on the other side, well, we were safe again. We said, because the Chinese, they had no means to follow, and they had no means to go further than what they have done already, because the Belgians, they had 3 or 4 wounded and so many killed and so many wounded. And then we went up to our position again from where we were located, and then on the when we came back on the beginning of September, we were relieved from our position, and because the idea was to take the 1st battalion we were sent in Korea, Belgian battalion, to be sent home again, and we arrived in Rotterdam on the 2nd of October 1951, and then we were sent back home again. Yeah? But there was one more very important incident. Before we were liberated from the position, we had to take part in an offensive action that was what we call diverging, and we were attacking a certain position, on a certain position, the Chinese, but on another sector, and in the middle sector of the whole lines, there was a very big attack moving on, throwing the Chinese further to the north. And during the night of the, I feel that was in August, of the 7th of the 9th August, they were attacked again during the night by the Chinese. Yeah? And we were, they were so close to our position that I was afraid that we would not have enough ammunition to fight them for a certain time. But that didn't happen. The Chinese, they moved back again. We threw them back. And then we came back over the river, and then we were called to what we call to a position where we can have a resting position. And then we moved up, we handed up all our equipment, and then we were taken to Incheon on a boat, the General McCree, and that must be in September, yes, because we were one month on the way up to Rotterdam, and that was the end of the first detachment. We were sent back to Luxembourg, and then the people, they were sent on leave, and I went home to my parents, and that was as far as I had done as a Luxembourg commander and as a Luxembourg soldier during this war.
So how many Luxembourgers fought in the war?
How many Luxembourgers in the Korean War? At the whole, with the second detachment that was created, we had 85 people in the Korean War, 85 Luxembourgers were saved in the war. And we have 2 wounded and about 15 to 14, no, 2 killed and about 15 to 14 wounded. Well, that was for me as a young soldier, a young officer, was a good experience. Not only to fight another aggressor, but it was also a very good experience how to handle people in critical situations. Because I had to have confidence in my people, and they had to have confidence in me. I was the leader, and we have never had an incident or trouble that somebody was wrong. I was very glad and very glad I had confidence in my people, and that was also a very big satisfaction for me. When I came back, I had my people, some had re-engaged. 6 people had re-engaged, but the other people, they were back to Luxembourg with me on the 2nd of October.
You came back and you volunteered. You said the 85 volunteered.
Yeah.
Including you. Why do you think they volunteered?
All the other. Well, some people, they didn't have a job. Other, they had maybe an adventure spirit in mind, because the adventure was all the time in the air, you can say, because people, when they are sent. But most of those people, I feel they wanted to be soldier, and I don't know exactly what were their feelings, if they were in to fight an aggressor and to help the Korean nation. I don't know. My feeling was that I was engaged to help the Korean nation because they were in a very critical situation, and I was just coming back from school. And so I said to myself, well, this is a very good occasion, first of all, to find out what is going on as a leader in a war. And my second motivation was to help the Korean people, because what we had heard, that the Korean people, the poor farmers, that they had been attacked by a very good equipped aggressor. Yes, that was when I started. I was at school. I didn't know anything about Korea. I didn't know where this country was, and I didn't know what was going on. And finally, we found out that there was a separation between south and north, which was because the first president, Sigmund Rhee, he made elections in '48, and the people of the north, they had no right because they were already under the domination or under the rule of Nam Il-sung. Nam Il-sung, who was the first president,
Kim Il-sung.
and they did not take part in these elections. And Sigmund Rhee had already in mind that he would be the president of the whole Korea. And well, it came in another way, and well, they were really surprised. But the American, I mean, information office, the G2 in this area, they should have known that something is coming up, because if you start an aggression, you have to assemble so many units, and I don't know. Well, they had no chance. There were not many American units to block them, and so that was the reason why they had a chance to go so far to Busan. They go well. It was not far away that they had thrown the whole United States, not the United States, United Nations Army in the sea again, and then that would have been a very big operation to have ground again in South Korea, and fortunately, in this few places on the Naktom, fortunately they blocked the Chinese offensive, because Chinese they were, and that was the biggest luck which could happen. And then after the engine landing by MacArthur, he cut out all the bases, all the units who were cut out, and then they broke out. General Walker, he was the commander of the 8th Army, he broke out, and then to join the forces who had made the landing. The landing that was at the height of Seoul, because from Incheon they went in the direction of Seoul, and Walker, he broke out in the same way, because he had not very much resistance, because all the North Korea, they were blocked. They were all cut up. And so they came together, and then from there on, from this part on, it was the United Nations forces. They were, we say, so many nations had engaged themselves, and at the end we had 21 foreign nations fighting the Chinese in the Korean War, and that was the lucky part, what I have found, and it was very, and then well, came the part when MacArthur was relieved from Ridgeway.
Truman.
Huh?
President Truman.
Begate, he was liberated from his post or sent out, sent back by Truman, and he was replaced by Ridgway. And from there, from that point on, Ridgway was our upper commander. And he was, I feel he was a very good man. He made many punishment operations, what he called, when the Chinese maybe had attacked or had found out some posts that they had taken back so many soldiers of the United Nations, then he made a punitive operation. He said, now we will punish them, and then he attacked on certain points. Well, I could not say much more about.
You must be very proud of the Luxembourgers' contribution. What you have.
Yes, I was very proud, and I was also not only to myself that I succeeded in my in the whole field. I was very proud, to have done very human mission, and I was very glad that when the South Korean war was over and the people could recover, and I was very much surprised what they have done during the last 60 years. I was so much surprised every time when I was in Korea. I was there already 8 times, 6 or 8 times, and I was all the time surprised also about the kindness of your people. They are so kind and so grateful. Very. That's what is also when I come back all the time they say, oh, if you would not be our liberators, if you would not come to Korea, what would happen to us? And so that was what. And in the museums, Luxembourg is very well represented. In the museums in Korea, Luxembourg is very well represented. No, and then after that, when we were back, we followed that very closely, and we were glad to hear that they had finally come to an agreement to cease fire, not to a peace, because they are still in war. North Korea and South Korea, they are still in war. And I wonder about the motivation of the South Korean units. They are very good soldiers. They are very, very. I can imagine that the North Koreans, they would not they would not come along far if they would dare to attack. But there is one thing. I was in one of those tunnels. They had created 8 tunnels under the Imjin battle, under the Imjin River. I was in one of those tunnels, and when they would have attacked again, they were not ready, but they could have attacked with so many divisions across one tunnel. Well, that would be the what we call the most biggest evil could have happened to the South Koreans, because they found only out that there were tunnels. There were tunnels inside. They could not. They found out that a soldier he was so vigilant, and he heard some noise. What is that? And then they looked after that in making research through the earth, and then they found a weed, we called it, how do you call that?
An empty place.
An empty hole, and they investigated, and they started to look after that, and then they found the tunnels. That was also very lucky. Oh, because that was they had no good things in mind, and luckily I was very happy that Korea had developed in this manner, good army, very well organized in the industrial field. Oh, I was very lucky to hear that Korea had recovered.
Well, like you said, we are all very grateful to you and your fellow Luxembourgers for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.